Here we go. This is the Oz report for August 30th, 2025. 2 hours into the live show, we're finally getting to the Oz report. And let's start, as always, with Plex and Plex adjacent items. At least today, I already have the game client open. And if we're looking at Plex, again, the history of Plex is off very short in game because of the introduction of the global Plex market. But we can see that since the introduction of the Plex market, Plex price hit a very low point this week. It dropped by 5%. We're at, let's see, 5.48 sell, 5.32 buy, very low. And a lot of this has to do with there being a 20% off Plex in the real store, in the cash store this week, pushing the price down. That is not surprising. On the other hand, we haven't had a very good New Eden store sale for quite some time. Yes, today one launched, but this is 50% off of the skill point bundles, the ones that they are presumably retiring because the new ones are already in the cash store. And that sale sounds good at 50% off in the New Eden store sale, in the New Eden store, but it's not quite as good as you might think. We went over this on stream earlier. You know, the long story short is that the Apprentice bundle is good for everyone. And if you're over 80 million SP, then all of the bundles are good value. But in between, not so great. If you're interested in the exact analysis, then go on YouTube and watch my rate the deal for that sale. Back to the Plex pricing. We're seeing low Plex prices. I don't think this is surprising. I think if CCP ever does return to really, really good New Eden store sales, like a Plexigeddon level 2-for-1 extractor sale or something like that, then we are going to see the spike again. The question is, what is CCP's interpretation of no more gamification? Does that mean that those days are gone of these massive sales? Or are we going to see them come back because without them, CCP can't hit their quarterly numbers? We'll find out in September. But for now, Plex is quite cheap. And I do think, as in the last 2 weeks, I do think this is Plex buy territory. I don't think it's going to slide that much more. And I think there's a very good chance for an upside. So if you are looking to invest a whole lot of money somewhere, Plex right now is not a dumb thing. If we're looking at skill extractors, then those of you that are with me long skill extractors will be happy to see that prices rose another 2% this week. We're actually back at 440 sell on skill extractors. That's not bad at all. That's quite good. I am still holding very much long. I want those prices to hit, at least 450, 460 because before I even think about selling. But I don't blame you if you're selling now, if you have funds tied up and need to release them. Skill injectors still at a very, very low price. The prices, they in this week didn't drop all that much, but the overall trend is still downwards. And if we're looking at the current price, it's at 780 million sell in JITA. This is not great. Not great if you're skill farming. It is great if you're a user of skill injectors, because right now is a time where skill points haven't been cheaper in a very, very long time. So cerebral accelerators are cheap, skill injectors are cheap, and there's been new skill point bundles introduced by EVE Online. So overall, I think the value, the ISK value of skill points just has dropped massively over the last 6 to 12 months, as you can see here, indicated by the large skill injector graph. So that's the Plex and Plex adjacent items. I'm not even going to mention hypercores for a few weeks, because that investment's been bad enough. If we go to other macro areas, we see that this week overall prices are on the rise, especially raw material prices. Raw material prices on average 2% up. That is pretty big overall. The macro trends here are that our 4 and R8 Mu materials continue to be super cheap, drop even more in price, at 50% yearly average, just, very, very cheap and no big change here. But we are seeing the gap between R4 and R8 and the other Moon materials, 1632 and 64, widening. I mean, R16 Moon materials went up another 10% this week. They're all trading at about 52-week average or higher, while R4 and R8 Moon materials have about halved in price due to the Metanox changes. And now, the question for you guys is just going to be, is this going to stay like this long term, or is this going to change? And if you look at the current Metanox meta, then I don't see this changing at all. We've seen CCP correct the price of running Metanoxes, and that has had very, very little impact overall. So unless we see some massive changes, I don't see this changing overall. The nice side effect of this is that there's a lot of other ship components and modules that have become cheaper because of this, right? We'll dive into some of them later in the Oz report, but certainly R4 and R8 Moon materials have had knock-on effects on the EVE economy as a whole. The other big macro trend are salvage materials. In the last weeks, we've been talking about them dropping in price because exploration sites are just so much more available now than they were before the June expansion. And we're seeing a reversal in that this week. So overall, the reason we're seeing raw materials rise in price this week is because we see a lot of buying signals here. We see, if we look at some of them here, look at tier 1 and tier 2 salvage, tier 1 up 14%, tier 2 salvage up 5%, but we can look at some examples in the game graph. Trigger units here. This is a very, very new development. All right, so trigger limits went down. They hit the bottom of 1.5 that they usually bottom out at, and then you can see right now the price is 2 million. So while this game graph isn't reflecting this yet, this has bounced back here, and this is people. I'm pretty sure this is people not necessarily in tune with what's going on with the economic development in the recent patches and expansion. This is more people saying, whenever trigger units hit 1.5 million, I'm going to buy because that's the bottom support of it. Okay, and so I think this is either investment or it's somebody like Sir Mix-a-Lot, Sir Smash-a-Lot, Sir Smash-a-Lot, who a lot of you know from the interviews he's done on my stream, just buying up enough salvage to produce for a while and to ensure that this cheap salvage is not out there for others to produce with. So this is pretty insane price fluctuation on the salvage side, and you see this with more than one item. So even thruster consoles here, they've been dropping in price since December. But you look at today's volume, and it went from 25K to 35K. So somebody is going in and buying up very, very large quantities of these salvage goods, resulting in an overall category increase of 5% and 14% for tier 2 and tier 1 salvage. And we're seeing the same exact thing on molecular forging tools. These have been dropping in price significantly because their availability was increased in exploration sites and the difficulty of ghost sites was reduced by CCP and in the last month or two. And so they had been dropping rather rapidly, coming from a very, very high price. And now this week they rose another 10% because we saw a lot of market volume on them. So overall, I think some of these categories are hitting cheap enough prices where people are going in and they're happy to buy to buy large quantities, either because they want to manufacture with them or because they're speculating that prices will be increasing sometime in the future, either because the market has reached a bottom or because CCP is going to make changes. Rogue Drone components down 7%. That is mostly Elite Drone AI, as we were discussing earlier. Elite Drone AI is interesting because it's a massive component for geckos, for example, or also for augmented drones. Now, augmented drones, and we're discussing this in chat earlier, augmented drones have been crashing in price massively since June because their BPCs are dropping from the exploration sites. And so what happened was these BPCs were dropping, and at the same time, people needed more elite drone AI to build all of these BPCs that were dropping. And so you had a massive flood of BPCs increasing the demand for elite drone AI and thereby dropping the price of said drones. And now the market is searching for some sort of equilibrium, and you can see that the price for elite drone AI was just massively inflated because people were just needed so much. But the market can only handle that many augmented drones. There's not an infinite demand for augmented drones, or geckos are a little bit different because their BPCs are just not available right now. But there's a saturation here, a market saturation, and so elite drone AI is also going to be dropping down here, especially because it's also these are also dropping from. Are they also dropping from exploration sites or from Droneland's PVE possibly? So there's just not an endless demand for these, and so the prices had been inflated, and they're coming down. These are gecko prices, by the way. So geckos are very elite, rare, heavy attack drones. Their BPCs used to drop in April from an event every year, but now they don't. Was it the egg hunt that was dropping them, or was it the Valentine's Day? I think it was the egg hunt. And their prices were increasing sharply as well, but since June they have also been dropping quite significantly. Yeah, somebody in chat said egg hunt. Thank you. So interesting to see also geckos drop down. There's not an infinite supply of these, but it's a very dynamic drone market right now because of all of these things that are happening. So good to see. Let me also quickly mention 0-point field manipulators, because we were talking about them on stream earlier. 0-point field manipulators are essentially tier 2 Triglavian build components. They drop from Triglavian content. Usually I think hunted in Triglavian wormholes or Pochven wormhole exits. And so they are the main component for Barbarogas and all other tier 2 Triglavian ships, like the Ikatursa, for example, or the Nurgle. And the demand for these just exponentially grew when the Barbaroga was released, because it's a massive ship. It uses a lot of these, and it's a very popular ship. So everyone wanted to fly one. And since then, luckily this has died down a little bit, just because because the Barbaroga is losing a little bit of interest, but also because people have responded massively to the increased demand here. People like me, liquidating large stockpiles, or others going out and farming every little one of these. They are still expensive. Okay, so, and they're still very much rare in the market. So 0-point field manipulators are still they're still a quote unquote bottleneck, but you can see the trend clearly goes down, and we're at 500,000 now, where we were at 1 million, 2 months ago. And so, it seems to have stabilized quite a bit, like the last week or two, but we'll see where this goes. And certainly this is something that as a CSM and with CCP we're watching very closely, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to make an entire group of very popular ships unaffordable for a lot of people to fly, because I think that's counterproductive to what we're trying to do, and that's why we're investigating it quite closely and having some intense discussions about it. And the outcome is very much open. I want to finish today with talking about Pyrite, because Pyrite has been a bane for CCP, because everyone is, or a lot of people are screaming for there to be more Pyrite and for Pyrite to go back down in price, because it's been, for a year now, it's been rising in price, and we're still at a very, very high 30 to 35 price right now. And we have situations like today. If you look at my Oz report, you see things like this. Like, look at this, is items that had the largest drop in supply this week. And you see Pyrite here with a 60% supply drop. That means that compared to a week ago, we have 60% less Pyrite in sell orders in the forge, right? So that's pretty massive. And that's despite CCP's efforts to increase the Pyrite supply by increasing refining rates and et cetera, et cetera. So that all doesn't seem to be helping. Miners always say, well, don't nerf it. If it's worth it, people will go mine. It seems to not be the case right now, that the current game mechanics are not rewarding players enough to actually go out and mine it in quantities that would satisfy the market. So if you ask me, what CCP has been trying to achieve, that they have put in patch notes and dev blogs, which is dropping the price of Pyrite down, they have not been able to achieve this. So that could be one area where more changes are coming, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if CCP gets what they want to do. Yeah. All right. That's it. That's the Oz report for August 30th, 2025. And we're going to return to the regular stream, and I'll see you guys on the Oz report next week.